Hey, what's going on, everybody? Let's just get into it today. I'm going to do a series of videos just called definitions, because I feel like, in addition to my obsession with history, right, I feel like a lot of people just are very misinformed about basic definitions of things, and it allows us to be confused, right? You know what I'm saying? It allows us to have these warped senses of what these words mean. And, we're in this very, very polarized time where like everything is kind of like a notion of like good versus evil, right? You know what I'm saying? It's like, and I think we've all established like a lot of the world is in gray areas, right? You know what I'm saying? So I just wanted to provide a couple of definitions for us, and then we can kind of move forward on what the word actually means, and then pushing forward. I can't wait to get into fascism. Like, I was debating how this video was going to go, but I think I'm just going to start with socialism, right? So let's get into it. Because if you notice, the best, the most popular insult or alleged insult, that's part of the reason I'm making this video, and they use it in a very, very negative way, that Republicans are like, oh, Kamala's the biggest socialist, or Biden's the biggest socialist, everyone's a horrible, evil socialist, we don't want socialism. So even if you don't know what socialism is, which literally like 90% of Americans don't, we have been kind of like programmed to think that that is somehow a bad thing. And a lot of it is like just based on like the mantra from like the, even like the most recent stint of like the 80s, you know what I'm saying, with Reagan and everything of that nature, but it even goes into like the earlier parts of America, like the communist scare and things of that nature, where a lot of Americans actually conflate communism and socialism, but we'll get into that later. But regardless of the fact, it's just like everything other than capitalism is evil. I think we can just like have that short kind of lesson, right? That like we don't learn really about any other economic system at all. But what we do learn is that capitalism is the best, and that's just that. And of course, I feel like in order for you to be able to know if something is the best, you need to have a working knowledge of other economic systems, right? And we have to acknowledge also that the economic system that we're in like a very, I say it all the time, like Europe has really been in control of the global geopolitical scenario for like the last 500 years, and their mode of economics is capitalism. And so we've been indoctrinated into thinking like that's really it. And a lot of our wars have been like fought against other governments that had other economic means and things of that nature. So I feel like we have to go into this knowing that we have like a bias that like we just think it's great and don't even really know it. So hence the point of this video. So socialism, let's just have a very basic definition. And I'm just going to read this from an actual encyclopedia definition. So socialism is a political and economic system where the community or state owns the means of production and property rather than individuals. It's based on the idea that public ownership of resources and production leads to a more equal society. That is not to say that socialism, private property, does not exist in socialism, or capitalism does not exist in socialism. So now you have a definition, and let's like really unpack that. So it does not mean that I in a socialist society cannot buy a house. It doesn't mean that I in a socialist society cannot buy this flower pot that's right here. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if you can see it. So I was like, but it's just a matter of the means of production and naturalized resources. So like America has a lot of natural gas and resources, so they're talking about natural gas. Maybe like some modes of productions, they might own the roads, they might, you know what I'm saying, like energy grids, things of that nature, kind of the larger entities in the country. So again, it's not to say that Walmart couldn't exist, or all the other businesses that we really take pride of in capitalism. But what it's saying is like kind of those large resources, instead of ExxonMobil owning the gas and oil things in America, the people would own them, and that instead of like them getting all the profits for it, the people would get the profits, and it would go towards our national debt. It would go towards like money for school and things of that nature. So what it suggests is that like the resources in a country that like are from our country, such as like gas and even certain agriculture things, like that will be something that the state in the people own, because like it's usually a democratic government, right? So it still has elections, it still has people, there are different styles of socialist republics. It could be a parliamentary style, it could be like our style, what I'm saying? It's like, so it still doesn't mean that like, oh, this dictator person is just coming and everybody gets equal and all of that. Like, that is not what socialism means at all. There are socialist republics right now, like even China right now. China has a bunch of different class structures and tiers, right? They're a socialist republic, but yet, what I'm saying? Like, they're not all the same, right? Some of the most wealthy companies in the world are in China. So it's like, just even examining that government. Now, I'm not saying, they have like a kind of a fascist socialist government where like their president has basically like cheated on the elections and all that kind of stuff. So let's not say like use that as a prime example, but just suggesting that like, the means of production and that capitalist things can exist in fact in socialist governments. And what I would also say to you is that a lot of the things that we actually like in our economy are in fact socialist, like every right that we have as an employee is based on socialism, because it was purely based on capitalism. What I'm saying? Like, and let's just have a definition of capitalism, because I think people, have a warped sense of capitalism, like equating freedom. But here's capitalism, and I quote, is an economic system in which resources and the means of production are privately owned, and prices, production, and the distribution of goods are determined mainly by competition in the free market. So that all sounds really, really, really great, right? But we understand that capitalism needs limits. It needs it. It cannot exist without it, because otherwise it's a beast that's just going to feed and eat itself. Let's just see some of these limits on capitalism we have. So it's like, we know right now we can't just go and buy a tank or a nuke, right? Those are things like, hey, but it's about capitalism. It's about supply and demand, baby, right? So if somebody has enough money, they should be able to get it. But yet we've decided in certain societies that like, hey, no, you can't buy certain weapons just because you want it and you have the means. Same thing with things like bodily organs. Like, I just can't go ahead and sell my kidney, even though it's my kidney, right? I should be able to sell it in a capitalist structure. Can't do that. Same thing with prostitution and a lot of things. They can't sell your body in certain things. You know what I'm saying? It's like, so there are so many limits that we have on capitalism in its unfettered way. And we've made those limits based on a lot of other things. Like, it could be based upon our religion, our faith, morality, fairness, danger. You know what I'm saying? So there's so many things that restrict capitalism. And if we look at it in those terms, we know it's like quite necessary. But what I also might ask you to think about is just taking a step further, is that capitalism cannot solely exist on its own. Just look at how much stuff costs. So you can Google me on this one too. So all of our infrastructure was really, really built in a time where there were like more nationalized things, right? Where the government could say like, hey, American steel, did give us this amount of steel. You know what I'm saying? Give it to us for this price. Like things like eminent domain in order for us to build the roads and all these kind of things, right? That benefit the entire nation, right? So we can say that all Americans can benefit from certain things that are produced. But if you're having it be privatized, it becomes a system that is unmanageable. So case in point, the New York rail system. So there are estimates right now that show that if they wanted to replace like the New York rail system, then it would cost over $2 trillion. $2 trillion, let alone like the actual time it would take that would like put New York in super gridlock, right? But like $2 trillion is like close to like the nation's GDP, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, so we really wouldn't be able to spend anything else other than just to fix New York City's infrastructure for their rail system. So that just multiply that times all the rail systems in America, all the bridges, all the roads, just for us to even get our infrastructure together the way that capitalism has done to dictate what prices are, that we as a nation could not afford our own nation. Like, we literally can't, for what it would cost in a privatization thing to make the things in our society that the whole country needs, which is why you see that all of our infrastructure is really crumbling. And if you go to other countries like China, you'll see that their shit is like brand new and amazing. Now, if they were purely capitalist and everything was made for a market price and people were making money 100%, like, they wouldn't be able to do these things. Like, a state at some point needs to nationalize some things in order to afford to be able to provide the resources that its country needs. And that, in turn, is socialist. right? But it's like it's a necessity. We even did it to build some of the infrastructure and systems that we have here today. I was like, but we don't know that, right? Because we have made socialism like the boogeyman, because people don't understand what it actually is and what it actually means. And that the fact that, like, if it's used and weaved into capitalism, that it actually results in benefits for everyday citizens and more, middle class to poor people. You know what I'm saying? Like, a complete capitalist system completely favors people that have all the capital and they control all the resources, right? In a purely capitalist structure, do we have recalls on bad products? Hey, you bought that product by yourself. There's no law that means I have to be honest about the sale, right? It's a dog eat dog world here. Good thing we have a lot of socialist things about what's better for the country, that, hey, we value the children's lives. So, hey, if we find that you're putting razor blades in your children's Tylenol, we're going to sue you and make sure that doesn't go down and make sure that's illegal. That's not capitalist at all. You know what I'm saying? It's like, that's actually like anti-capitalist to have a government kind of forcing a private corporation to do something against its own will that's not profitable for them. That is actually anti-capitalist. But we know in so many examples and real world examples that, like, capitalism and the motivation for profit can solely really not be how we operate on certain things. It's just not right for us. It's not right for anyone, and it's unsustainable. And even in terms of pricing it out and moving forward about how we can withstand some of the benefits that we've gotten in this economy. So I just ask you to, like, say that socialism is not a dirty word, but they want you to feel that way. And why? Because they don't want you to actually be educated on what it is, so you can actually advocate for some of the things that are good about it. You know what I'm saying? Like, so lo and behold, capitalism benefits the 1% that own everything, that have always owned everything, and have these policies that they want you to believe that, like, will benefit you, and have, like, literally never have, and quite frankly, never will. So educate yourself. Socialism isn't a dirty word. And until next time.